Welcome to the Your Success Tonic podcast. I'm your host, Nathalie Pincham, founder of Story Tonic and creator of the Story Makeover program. Find out the power of a story makeover by joining me at my upcoming masterclass. Just go to storytonic.co to grab your free seat. Now let's dive in. Welcome to Your Success Tonic. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how the story you tell shapes not just your success, but your entire life. So I want you to think about it this way. We are the directors of the movie that we're living, right? And every day we wake up and we've got our director hat on and we're writing scripts and we're directing and producing the movie. And most of us are producing and performing in a movie that we don't actually want to see. And it all starts with the words that you're using. I'm not well. I'm not loved enough. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. So I wanted to record this episode because I think this is so important. It's so foundational, and we have to shine a light on it. So there's this sense that when we're watching a movie on a screen and it's terrifying, or it's just something that we do not want to see, we think that we have no control over how it all turns out, right? But the beauty is that in this movie, all we have to do is walk behind the screen and go back to the script and rewrite the movie. So I want to invite you to start thinking about how you can begin to change the script. Werner Erhard said that all change is linguistic. It's a profound and yet very simple truth, and it reminds us how pivotal language is in shaping our reality. So your words, how you speak, the stories you tell, hold the power to dictate the future that you're creating. So in the 3 Laws of Performance by Dr. David Logan, he talks about how we all have what we call, or what he calls, a default future, right? It's the future that we're driving toward no matter what we want, right? It's a default. It's not the future we want. It's not the future we hope for. It's just the default future that we're creating by virtue of the effort that we're putting out, by the thoughts and actions that we're taking. So your language actually reveals that default future, right? It's all there in the words that you choose. And so that's because they form your perspective, right? And that in turn guides your behavior, ultimately determining the future that you're bringing to life. And I love this quote by Lao Tzu, right? To illuminate this. Watch your thoughts because they become your words. Watch your words because they become your actions. Watch your actions because they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. So it's not just enough to think about the future you want. You've also got to tell the story of the future you want, right? Think it and tell it. Language is so powerful that once you start talking about the future you want, you can start to truly envision it. And the more you speak it, write it, and live it in that way, the less hesitation you'll feel. And then eventually you can speak about it with conviction rather than being afraid to talk about the future that you want to create. About, some of us don't feel worthy of the big dreams that we have, right? The more we start to live them and speak about them, the less fear there is. And so the language that you use is a reflection of the future you're creating. And it's a reflection of your identity. So Dr. David Logan talks about generative language, right? Which is the language that is generating the future, right? So if you listen to any visionary or leader, and there's many of you in the audience who match that description, I know, right? These kinds of people talk about the future often. And when you start using generative or future-based language, language about the future that you want, that you really want, right? You start to have the identity of the person who can make that happen. It's almost magical. Now, another thing is that language shapes your perspective. All right, this goes back to the idea that your perception shapes your behavior and your behavior shapes your results. But it's the language that shapes the perception. All right, so let's consider an example of how perception, behavior, and language are interconnected. I'm going to share an example of two of my clients. And for privacy purposes for this recording, I'm going to call them Sarah and James. All right. Now, like most of my clients, they are both high achieving professionals. They are both amazing. And they came to me because they want to take their expertise out of the 9-to-5, out of their corporate careers, and turn it into a profitable online business. Right? So they're both facing the same challenging project of launching a business, something that they've never done before, based on a vision that truly means something to them. Now, Sarah perceives this project as a significant opportunity for growth and learning, right? She sees it as her chance to showcase her skills and make a positive impact, right? So she is super motivated, wildly enthusiastic about her project, right? So she's approaching it from a very positive place. And when she sets goals, she works very diligently towards them, right? Now, obviously, starting a business, starting something brand new is hard. There are obstacles. So whenever those come up, she actively seeks help, right? She reaches out to me. And when she needs to, she schedules extra meetings with me so that I can coach her through the difficulties that are coming up, right? So the combination of the positive attitude, the positive action taking, and that effective collaboration, right, which is so, so key, means that she is really moving ahead in leaps and bounds. She's making more money than she could have dreamed already, right? She's brand new and she's just getting results that she was not expecting at all, right? But now I want to contrast this with my client, James, right? James started out with also this absolute passion for what he wants to bring out into the world. He is so excited about his business, right? Because it's really the culmination of all of his years of expertise and hard work, plus this just real desire to make a difference, right? So he is amazing, but he also perceives starting the business as a really overwhelming and potential source of stress, right? So he thinks that sometimes it might be too much for him to handle, right? So what does he do? He procrastinates. He feels very anxious a lot of the time about online marketing, right? He avoids seeking help. He absolutely avoids collaboration with other people because he doesn't think that he's ready for that yet. He doesn't think that he's good enough for that yet, right? When we have our coaching sessions, we have to work through his doubts every time. And so as a result of this, James is taking longer to grow his business, and he is experiencing a lot more stress, right? And so the story that he tells himself is that business is hard. And I'll tell you what, the potential clients that get onto calls with him also perceive that hesitation, and that impacts their excitement about working with him. Now, as a quick side note here, I want to say that all the things that James is experiencing, and Sarah for that matter, are completely normal. Being an entrepreneur and starting a business based on what you're passionate about is really hard. It's really demanding, and it requires that you go deep and deal with the deeper blocks that are within you. And so there is absolutely nothing wrong with either of these approaches. I'm sharing them. I'm sharing the story of Sarah and James because I want you to understand that language plays a vital role in shaping their experience, right? When Sarah talks about her business, she uses words like exciting, positive change, driven, right? She feels like it's totally in line with her values, with her purpose, with her sense of meaning, right? So when she talks about that, it comes through. When she talks about it to herself, I'm sure she's using those words as well. On the other hand, James uses very different language to talk about his business. He uses words like overwhelming. He uses words like hate, right? I hate online marketing. I hate social media, right? So that creates a lot of heavy energy, and it changes his perception of what it means to have the online business. All right. Now, the good news is that we've made massive strides and incredible progress with James as well. And he is beginning to experience the positive outcomes of having a coach in your corner saying, you know, let's look at this story from a different perspective. Right. So this story demonstrates to you how our perceptions, behaviors, and then ultimately our results can be profoundly influenced by the language that we use and the way that we choose to frame our experiences and our challenges, right? So your language shapes your perspective. So your story isn't just a tool for communication, right? It's your lens to the world. It dictates how you perceive your surroundings, and it influences the actions that you take. It shapes your view of the reality that you are experiencing. It shapes your view of the world, right? It shapes how you act and the results you get from those actions. And this is why transformation is fundamentally linguistic, right? As I said earlier. It's all rooted in the words that you choose and the story that you tell yourself. When you employ generative language, that future-based, positive growth language, you're essentially using language that is empowering and affirmative and guiding you, right? This all starts in your story. It's all in your language. And then that influences your behavior. Right? So now when you start talking about what you want with conviction, excitement, and acceptance, right? You're crafting a new story. It's not just about thinking positive, right? You've got to speak it into existence. Your words, your identity, and your actions all need to be in sync. And this is what Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote about in the 6 principles of influence. And one of those 6 principles is consistency. And the idea here is that as human beings, we have an innate need for consistency, right? We want our words, our identity, and our actions to all be consistent with each other, right? We need that alignment, right? When we don't have that alignment, something feels off. And so whenever you say something, right, you actually arrange your identity to fit what you have said, right? That's how your brain works, right? And then you fit your behavior to fit your identity and your language. But it all starts with language, with story, right? Your language, your identity, and your behavior are all pushing to be in alignment with each other, right? That is what your brain is actively doing all the time. And this is the power of story. When you speak something, your brain immediately gets to work, reshaping your identity to align with that story. And so obviously, if you start speaking about the results that you want, right, the biggest goals you'd like to make happen, and speaking about it with that commitment, that excitement, then you will start to feel that excitement and that commitment, right? Declare your future self with resolute language, and your identity will shift. You literally view the world through a new lens, right? You start to hone in on the aspects that support your vision. All right. And then your actions will follow suit, because as Dr. Robert Cialdini says, we crave that alignment. So I really want you to take away from this the incredible power of story and its ability to shape not only our future, but also our past. Right. And that is mind-blowing when you realize that you can harness generative language to rewrite the story of your past. And your past, like your future, is all part of the story that you're living right now, right? And I have personally experienced the magic of this, right? Your story is ever evolving, and it's continually reconstructed in the present moment. So you are the director, you are the author, right? You can keep retelling the same old stories that keep you stuck, that hold you back, right? And Lord knows I've done that for a really long time in my life, right? And I'm sure that many of you listening can relate to that, right? But there's another way, right? You can take charge and you can proactively reevaluate your past and start to infuse it with new meaning, right? You can reconstruct your past experiences based on your current perspective. Our darkest experiences can be about growth and can offer profound value, right? Maybe you can look at an experience that was hard and you can ask yourself, what did I gain from that difficult, tough experience, right? How have I become better because I went through that horrible thing? What have I forgiven? What have I let go of? And how has that fueled my growth? Right? These questions have the power to help you tap into your strength and wisdom. And so I want you to ask yourself these two questions, right? The first question is this: what is your negative headline story, right? You may have lots of headline stories right now, but what is the headlining story of your life at this time, right? And when you start to really think about it from that negative perspective, I want you just to write it down, look at it. And I want you to think about how ridiculous it is, right? What is it for you? What is that headliner? For me, for the longest time, it was, I'm not good enough. I can't go for this because I'm not good enough. They don't like me because I'm not good enough, right? For a lot of us, that's the story that we're telling, right? So what is the positive story you could tell, right? Let's go to the second question, right? What is the opposite of that negative headline story that you've been living? What does that feel like, right? When you're no longer in the negative story. I can and I will, right? How does that feel? Describe that feeling. What is it? And really describe it, go deeper than, oh, it feels better or it feels happy, right? What is it deeply? Does it make you feel powerful? Does it make you feel peaceful? Does it make you feel worthy? Does it make you start to feel excited about where you're headed, right? What does it feel like when you're in alignment with that? Right. So now when you play this experiment, right, of doing the two headlines, you can really highlight the difference, right? This is how we can practice knowing when our story is out of alignment with the things that allow us to thrive, right? It helps you know what does it feel like when I'm in alignment? And what does it feel like when I'm out of alignment? All right. What are the positive aspects of your life right now? What are the positive aspects that you hope to create? Write those out. Get really clear about what they are. Okay, it's a very simple practice, but it starts to write a new story. And your story will either set you free or keep you stuck. You decide. Your story can spark a vision that inspires you and inspires change in other people, or it can lead to burnout and quitting on the things that matter to you. I almost quit my business because I was so burnt out. Right? The quality of your story determines not only the quality of your results, but everything, right? Including the bottom line in your business, by the way. So even through my hardest experiences, I've seen that I can create value from those experiences. And the more I share those, right, the more connection I find. I get to share a much better and more powerful, more empowering story of the things in my past that I was ashamed of, that I ran away from, that I suppressed, that I hated, right? And now I get to experience it in a completely different way so that I can move towards a much more exciting story in the future, right? As you start affirming the future with your story, you start to see the world differently and you can create that different outcome for yourself. And I know that that's true. And it's the core of my new program, all of this, right? And my program's called the Story Makeover. And in that program, we sync up your story, the internal story, the external story, and your calling, right? The bigger picture of what you're wanting to create, that vision of success that you are craving. And you have to master the art of shifting the story you're telling yourself, right? That story that you're telling others as well, in order to make that bigger vision a living reality. I've had so much fun sharing all this with you today because I am so passionate about it. I really have personally lived and experienced the profound impact of addressing your story on all 3 levels. There are 3 levels that you have to address fully before you can start to feel that huge surge of confidence and energy that you need to really make those bigger, bolder dreams happen. So I have created a masterclass in which I go much deeper into all of this, and I get to share some of the tools with you. And I would love for you to attend the masterclass. Just go to the program notes or just to my website, storytonic.co, and you will be able to sign up and save a spot for the masterclass that is coming up very soon. And I would absolutely love to see you there. And I also want to know, what step can you take today to move toward a different story for you and your business? If this episode has resonated with you, could you please do me a favor and share it or like it? Right? The more people who hear these episodes, the more people will be inspired to make changes and inspire others to do the same. So please share this episode with anyone you think might benefit. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the masterclass.